But we're a little too reactive right now. It's kind of funny. Whirling Death probably has to be a 3F. Let's try this. So overall, there's still a lot of other things I want to try. I'll try this for now and just kind of get a feel for how this slightly different direction goes. I could also see running 2 mites, especially it's a bit more redundant with Zenith. The reason I'm keeping Might as a 3 is because it actually helps win the game. Like, Sparklefly plus Out of the Way plus temporary buffs can just win us the game when the rest of our hand isn't working. And that's a really big deal. And that's kind of why we were running Elixir of Wrath. The reason we cut Elixir of Wrath is because it's a worse might. And the reason it's a worse might is because in that board state where we have Sparklefly and Out of the Way and we need permanent buffs or temporary buffs going into permanent for damage, then we don't really care about spending 2 extra mana. So the Overwhelm is just worth the 2 mana. And that's part of the reason that might can stay in the deck. We need to be very, very trick heavy, and we're gonna encounter some problems with running 1 Bastion. Ah, God, I'm so sure that 1 Bastion isn't proper. Let's go 2 Bastion. It's really important not to just like fall into the trap of looking at the games we've had. We haven't really needed Bastion in these games because we haven't really been against like Vengeance stuff. We haven't really needed Arachnoid Sentry in these games. To be honest, mostly we haven't really drawn Arachnoid Sentry. It's hit some spots against the Gangplank deck. It could have won us the game, but we just haven't really been drawing it. Hello, dude. I'm playing since yesterday and it's so much fun. I'm glad that I found you. I'm glad that I found you too, dude. So we're attacking odds, Tahm, Soraka. We can go ahead and keep the Taric in the hand. We've got Taric, Draven. The question is, are we keeping Sketcher? Super interesting. Also, against Tahm, Soraka, we could definitely consider keeping Hush. Sketcher has to be kind of above average for the deck. We're attacking on 3. We can't play Sketcher on 3 because we're playing Draven on 3. And we can't play Sketcher on 4 because we're playing Taric on 4. So we're not going to be able to discard an Axe for value. So I'll kick the Sketcher here. If we were attacking on odds, or on evens instead of odds, yeah, we still couldn't play Sketcher here. So we don't need Sketcher if our hand is good. If we have both Draven and Taric, the Sketcher will kind of never make sense with our mana curve. Because, you know, it's Fan on 1. I guess if we had Draven instead of Fan, maybe Sketcher makes sense. Maybe. And of course, attacking here is wrong because against Tahm, Soraka, he wants his units to get damaged. So we just have to let that happen. Why Zenith? You have Might and a lot of buffs. Zenith is unnecessary. I mean, you guys easily might be right. It's very possible. The reason is I want more proactive things. I want to be able to... Zenith, in my mind, can help board states where I'm kind of like floating mana and not doing anything else with it. And I mean, it improves the top decks. Very small amount. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not in love with Zenith, but I think it's worth trying out. You guys easily could be right. So at 4 mana here, there's nothing terrifying he could do. He can do like Guiding Touch and then force me to like Axe or something. He can do like Guiding into Pale. Is a very scary hand, but he can't do Guiding into Pale because then if I have Pale, I win that exchange. So like it goes Guiding on Kadra, 4 health, Axe on Draven. He thinks about his own Pale, which is good, but then I Pale and I win the game on the spot. So he has to play around my Pale. So we have a free attack here. That's kind of the nice thing about Draven is that, I mean, Draven kind of always gets free attack and Pale Cascade makes Draven's attack even more free. Bit of an issue. This Tahm Kench card is pretty neat. A little too neat. Well, now how do we win? I guess I just Bastioned both of them. Like, pre-Bastioning both of them is sick here. Good thing I didn't cut Bastion to a 1-of, huh? So Bastion leaves us with 3 mana left. I think he's priced into using Acquired Taste on the... I'd probably just have to pre-attack with Bastion on both of them. I think there's probably no way around that. I'm pretty happy with this play. We have pretty good options here. His Tahm Kench is still going to be a big problem that we're going to lose to. I don't think we can beat it. Like, Tahm Kench is just a completely polarizing card. Against a certain matchup, if that deck draws Tahm Kench and we don't have the cards or the hands to beat it, then we'll just auto lose to it. Like, Tahm Kench either turns the game into like an auto win or an auto lose, basically. I really like you actually playtest the deck with small changes to evaluate better. I was going to say the opposite. I think playtesting is kind of a meme. I mean, if you're spot counting, then playtesting has value, but nobody actually does that. I don't know. I mean, I can level up my Draven. That's kind of funny. Does that do anything for me? It's pretty funny. I guess I do. I don't know. This kind of sucks. Yep. I guess this is just what we're doing. Whee! He eats your Draven, you give Draven axes, and then Draven kills Tahm. I mean, it can. Like, that's kind of the hope. The only problem is, the way this Tahm Kench deck works is it runs all these cards to keep Tahm alive. That's pretty sick. So something really cool with Shakedown, by the way, is depending on the deck, you can... I've run Shakedown in different styles of decks. You can use it to deny like Lee Sin's Dragon Kick, which is really cool. A lot of people cut Shakedown from Tahm Soraka, which I don't know if I like. I don't know. Shakedown's a close one. It's a pretty good card, though. So, obviously, Shakedowning there, I mean, he doesn't stop my Draven from leveling, but he does stop me from getting 2 more axes. So, I guess there's some value in that. I don't know. I don't really care, but I don't think it's a misplay on his part either. Okay, so, I mean, he obviously has, like, a Pale Cascade here, and he knows we don't have an answer. Man, and survival skills wouldn't help here too, because it's just like an obliterate effect. I guess I just have to hope he misplayed and doesn't have Pale. Is that my win condition? I mean, he's at 11. And this Tahm Kench card is pretty good, guys. Okay, what if I actually put him on Pale? Can we win this game? What does that look like? We're not drawing another Draven soon. We have like Might into an open attack. Sometimes we can actually threaten the Tahm. The thing you guys have to understand is like even if I Pale that, it's not really an auto win. Nothing to lose. There's actually draws that play out to having a win, and it's actually important having the guiding touches for that. The best case scenario is if we go in for that, we force out a Hush, but it doesn't matter. Whoa, takes the pass there. See now, like when we have the draws off of the guiding touches, and we can put him on Pale Cascade as well. His options are kind of a lot more bricked out. And if we have an overwhelm unit into like an open attack, suddenly we can at least do something off of that. Like Taric leveling up, putting a little bit of pressure on. Whirling Death's not doing a lot. I mean, I'll try. Permanently enhancing these units doesn't really do a ton either. I could see an argument to Clone and Guiding Touch even being better than this. We'll try this. Astral Healing is low-key broken. In that deck, Tahm Kench is a card that is just completely polarizing. The entire deck is built around like hitting the matchup in the hand state where it either wins on the spot or loses on the spot. I think a lot of people don't really realize that. Well, it's true that Tahm Kench auto wins a lot of spots because of how that deck is built. If it doesn't draw Tahm or it doesn't draw protection for him, or if it's a matchup that doesn't care about that, then it also auto loses, right? It's just a really polarizing deck either way. So, I mean, nothing we can do here.
You're all so cute.
So he should, like, Pale now to draw? Or use, like, Astral or something? He usually doesn't burn mana here. Burning mana here would be pretty weird. And because we didn't, like... I do think... I know it probably looks weird, because almost always you have to take, like, long odds when you can. But the thing is, if he doesn't have Astral Protection and I let the Draven die there and I respect the hand, he literally has to have Pale or Hush. Now, forcing out Hush, there's value to that, don't get me wrong. But if it's Pale, we can actually beat bad hands that can't really... If there's no Astral, this Tahm Kench can't really do anything else. And if it's a Pale hand instead of a Hush hand, if we draw Overwhelm, we can win the game. So, I know it seems really weird. I know you normally have to just hope they don't have it. But I think we were priced into letting the Draven die there. So, there's the Pale we put him on. Imagine if the Pale was a bluff the whole time. It's not a bluffable spot. You can't bluff spots that aren't bluffable, really. So I can discard a Spinning Axe. There's a fascinating consideration that Spinning Axe could actually not be the best to discard here. I don't think we're gonna need all three though. Messenger looks very, very sweet here. So he might have been able to draw Astral, but he can't Astral Acquired Taste this turn. So we can spend a little bit of our mana. We're pretty safe. And this is kind of the dream scenario for Sketcher. Like when we added the Sketchers to this deck after, you know, the last game, like check this out. This is Sketcher doing exactly what Sketcher wants to do. She bails us out of some hands that just need a little bit of help. This Messenger is absolutely essential towards our ability to win the game here. And I'm happy to just discard another Axe and get another draw. So yeah, it's basically just a much better arena bookie. Isn't Moonlight Affliction nuts here? So ding, ding, ding. That's exactly correct. These are the kind of, this is what spot counting is. This is what you should be thinking about. If you're deck building, Don't look at cards' performance in your hands. Just look at how cards are actually doing, like, in any position, right? If you had the card there, or if you double drew a card there, or if you didn't have a card there, like, that's just how we evaluate deck building. And yeah, Moonlight Affliction gives us a way to win the game here. Although, any Overwhelm kind of does. So he takes another pass. That's interesting. I don't think he can actually really punish me tapping under a point. Like, I don't think there's any downside of me playing, for example, the other Sketcher or the Sparklefly. There's a good chance that our win condition turns into elusive win condition, which is really interesting. Maybe I'm missing something and there is some kind of hand that punishes tapping under the second axe. Like, maybe I needed to keep both axes up, but at 4 mana, I don't think there's anything. Cutting Might was a mistake. Doesn't Zenith win the same spots as Might here? I guess against some hands with Acquired Taste, you might need to open attack. I mean, if that Zenith in my hands earlier was a Might, I would have had to discard it in the same way that I discarded the Zenith. They're kind of doing the same thing. I think I agree. I think Might's probably better than Zenith. Wow. Second Tahm Kench goes in for a Bayou Brunch. I don't really understand that play. Leveling up Tahm Kench doesn't do anything. Like, obliterating the cards he's eaten never matters, because if Tahm Kench dies, then he loses the game anyway. Am I missing something? I don't really understand that play. I mean, he can't, like, eat anything for value here. He can't even eat my Draven's biggest fan. So yeah, I don't get that at all. He doesn't have healing for him, and he just wants to be mana efficient. Yeah, that makes sense. He's just passing into next turn with, like, some kind of Astral or Guiding Touch play. Sure. So he's basically forced to try to make a move next turn. Wow. He's actually just using the mana. So that can't be right. He's just spending mana to level up Tahm Kench. That doesn't do anything. Like, my Spacey Sketcher is doing literally nothing on this board. Leveling up the Tahm Kench doesn't do anything. And the mana that could have been banked would have just always done more. Kill Tahm. Wait, did I mess up? Was there some... You mean if I had kept the other axe? Yeah, but if I had kept the other axe, he wouldn't have done that, I think. And there's just... I mean, there's no downside in letting him do this. He's spent all his mana for no reason. Like, I'm pretty happy to discard the axe there. It's definitely better like this. Like, the axe is a face-up card. It doesn't really do very much. So we do want to clone something valuable with Taric here. In this case, the best clone is probably just Guiding Touch. We do need to double draw here. Maybe the banked mana does nothing for him. You don't know his hand state. So that's a very good point. The only problem is, no matter what the hand state is, there are always top decks that make the mana do something for him. If he top decked some, like, that deck always has opportunities to top deck Pale or top deck Guiding Touch or top deck something expensive. Like, you always have to bank mana with a deck like that. It doesn't matter what his hand is. The fact that you always have a top deck out means you have to bank mana when there's no reason not to. So yeah, we're just going to attack. I guess it just comes down to what we want to make immortal. I don't know if there's much that matters here. I think it's fine to attack with these. Getting a small amount of chip damage in could actually be the difference between winning this game or not. So I'm pretty happy to just take an attack like this. I guess making the 5/4 immortal is kind of pointless, because it's probably not dying anyway, but eh. So hopefully we get Might off of the Pale. How much did you pay to get all of those cards prismatic? Way too much. But back when Gambas existed, I allowed people to put their currency down $1 million for me to spend $100 on prismatic shards. I didn't think people would actually do it. And so I was forced to spend $100 on prismatic shards. I mean, he can't submit this. Tahm Kench has to block here. So that's the thing about this open attack. We've done a bit of chip damage. Tahm Kench is completely forced to block here. Because anything that could kill Tahm Kench is also just going to kill his Nexus directly. And if he spends mana on keeping Tahm Kench alive, then we can sometimes just try to threaten lethal with our options. So he's hushing something that isn't threatening lethal. He's actually kind of not really playing around our hand enough. And now he needs a second hush to be able to survive here, right? And that's a pretty big deal for us. So we draw the other Pale as well. I mean, we have enough mana for all of them. So we can, I mean, don't we even beat the second Hush now? From drawing that other Pale. So yeah, this was a crazy game. We literally just had to let our Draven die to the Tahm Kench grab. A play that's almost never cracked. A play that's almost never cracked, but letting our Draven die was how we won this game. Because it's literally... Okay, so if you want, like, a breakdown of that action, if we want to think about, like, poker logic a bit, it's just like a math equation, right? And some of it is, like, objective math and some of it is subjective. So the odds of him having an answer to my spinning axe there are absurdly high. It kind of depends who you ask a bit, but it's something in the range of, like, it's above 95%. Like, even if you're a bad player, you don't do that. It's like, we are playing in Masters. So, like I said, it depends a little bit who you ask, but it's above 95%. So we're taking like a 4% chance to win there. And instead of doing that, it looked like we were in a really bad position. But instead of taking those odds, we just exploited a vulnerability in Tahm Soraka, which is that it has the ability to clink out some hands, right? Most importantly, just kind of like assuming he doesn't have an astral protection hand. Like if we let the Draven die, if he doesn't have astral protection and we draw things that help us close the game in the next couple of turns, and the odds of all that happening are closer to 10 or 15%. It's higher than like 4%, right? That's kind of all you need to know. So super weird play, but ended up being necessary there. And even if he hadn't misplayed at the end there, we potentially still could have won. It really depended on his hand state. This is your time to make Riven shine. So Riven actually might make some sense in this deck. It's not that far off, except for the fact that this card sucks. I mean, this is just terrible, right? Riven makes no sense here. You think she's good without leveling? I think her deck building cost is too high. She's just a shit card, right? I'm mapping out all the scenarios in my head. She's only good when I already have the Draven, because otherwise I'd rather have Draven. If I already have Draven, Riven's not really helping enough either. If this deck could afford the champ slots, I would probably run like 2 or 3 Riven, actually. Like, Riven would make sense in this deck as like an alternate to Draven, but there's no... I mean, I can't fit in the champ slot. That's kind of the sad thing about Riven. And then you could ask the question, okay, so what about instead of running Riven, you just run some of the Reforge? Like, what if we ran like Blade Squire as like an alt gift giver, Rune Weaver as an alt goat? Rune Weaver is a really bad goat. So we've got Fan, Draven, Sharpened Resolve. We're attacking odds. This looks like a Zenith Blade keep, right? Am I trolling? Why am I running Zenith Blade in this deck? I mean, against Go Hard, we can actually play Zenith Blade on 3. Yeah, this is a keep. Look at this, Zenith Blade paying for itself already. That's a keep. That feels good. Because he can't... So the scariest thing about Zenith Blade is when they punish it on the stack when you tap to 0. But his deck can't do that. Like, I can tap to 0 on 3 and Zenith my Draven, and it's okay, right? God tier hand. So this is a god tier hand, but attacking on odds instead of evens is definitely worse here. I think it's actually just a good idea to think about like a hand state as including the coin, because 3 ofs are 50-50s or pretty close to it. Like, that's a decent approximation, and the coin is just also follows the 50-50. Like, I always think about an opening hand as like the coin is like the 6th card in your hand. Whether you're attacking evens or odds is like the other card in your hands, which seems kind of weird at first, but makes sense. But yeah, I mean, this is a sweet Zenith Blade. I mean, I'm kind of tapping under any ability to do anything cool with Taric. I mean, if he's a good player and he has TF, we have to open attack the other rounds. I think the Zenith Blade is shit. You guys are right. I'm going to cut this card. I do want a proactive spell. Taric is just a win more card. With Might, he's not. What does Riven need to be good? Like, if you could create your own cards? I think the biggest thing is that she needs to represent a win condition. The biggest problem with most cards in the game, and the thing holding back most cards in the game, is they don't have ways of actually winning the game. So the easy punching bag example is Arel the Tracker, where it's like she has a high deck building cost and she doesn't work against some decks, but the real problem with Arel the Tracker is like even when she works, she doesn't win you the game. That's a really big issue. I actually don't think I can take this much damage. Very interesting. I think I probably do have to block this and just like double axe the Draven. The very sad thing here is I don't have Whirling Death, so I'm pretty vulnerable to Glimpse, and open attacking does definitely represent a Glimpse. I could sharpen resolve. Man, maybe my health is just fine. When do we ever die by running out of health? That never happens. Same problem with Catastrophe? Kind of same problem with Catastrophe, yeah. Which is that it gets countered by a lot of things, like a 30-30 Overwhelm doesn't actually win the game against any good deck. A way to win the game usually has to involve, like, not going to combat or having security on the condition, right? And we can see, like, powerful decks have ways to win the game with, like, you know, either nut draw combos, like just overwhelming with value, Ferran, plus, like, the burn over the top, having, like, a fork win condition. Feel the Rush is just a win game button. TF Go Hard is a flexible deck, and, you know, Pack Your Bags is kind of, like, the de facto win condition there. Good decks need ways of actually winning the game. The problem with Riven that's bigger than all of her other problems, she does have multiple problems, is that when you actually level her up and when you do everything right, she gives you a slow speed blade in your hand that doesn't even really have much synergy with her or anything she's about. Like there's a bit, but it's very minor, and it gets answered by everything. Like a slow speed developmental play into like Sentry, into like the first step is you can make the sword like burst speed or gem speed like the rest of her things. There's no reason her sword has to be slow speed. Do I Zenith here? I can just out of the way here. I think I'll probably end up making both of my guys immune. So we'll start the out of the way. Make them both immune here. If he's smart, he won't block this, but I could also have kind of had to open attack for TF. How bad is it if he TFs me here, honestly? Probably pretty bad. So you think Riven is fundamentally flawed? I guess it's debatable what you mean by those words exactly. I don't know. I fundamentally flawed versus like minor tweak is just kind of a gray area, right? Okay, so he's threatening the Draven here, and this is kind of the perfect opportunity to just survival skills both of my units, right? And I mean, we're always going to use Draven. So this is the first time I've done this. I'm actually not 100% sure it works. I'm pretty sure that the second survival skills will go on the Draven. Oh, I guess I can't test it because I'm doing the sequencing right anyway. Yeah, it'll go on the Draven no matter what. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't have gone on the Taric regardless of the second health because I don't think it can go on the same unit. I have to save Guiding Touch for face. The question is, can we pre-Zenith before this attack? And we have to ask ourselves, could he be trolling and just not have TF there? If he has TF and didn't use it there, he's completely trolling. I don't know, it is a go hard player. They do make really bad plays sometimes. Alright, dude, if you have TF, you're just too good. Okay, so we get to clone Zenith and put him on a clock of 2. He has to not block this. Right now, his win condition is just punching me down. He has to play the aggro player, right? He has to just attack into me and try to deal 10 as soon as possible. He has no inevitability. My units, they have the survival skills invincibility instead of the Taric invincibility. The biggest difference between these is survival skills doesn't keep me alive from like ruination. His open attack's pretty scary here. We have Guiding Touch, and this is why we couldn't Guiding Touch one of our champions. Yeah, I mean, this looks good. Is there... So if I draw Whirling Death off of Guiding Touch, then I actually want to do it before this combat resolves, I think. Because I want to be able to beat hands of second Doom Beast plus... Doom Beast plus what? We're already beating second Doom Beast. Doom Beast plus red card? That's not worth it, is it? Deckhand Doom Beast? Yeah, Deckhand Doom Beast we can't really beat. So Glimpse here is spooky. Second Glimpse is actually not really an issue. We're outside of Doom Beast range. It would be nice to have Whirling Death. And now we're losing to like Doom Beast red card, but we're open attacking with this Twisted Fate for the kill, right? So aren't we just good? Like if he doesn't Doom Beast me now, like the Guiding Touch being kept in the hand keeps us out of the range of the Doom Beast now, and suddenly, I mean, we just beat everything, right? Charger could be correct. I mean, he has to go hard this turn if he has it. So if he doesn't go hard now, he can't have it, which means I can play Charger afterwards. The pressure is on him because he knows I'm open attacking. He knows he needs to try to survive. He can't not go hard me now. He can't pass. So the fact that he passed means he has to have no go hard, which means we can play Charger here. And of course, Charger being an overwhelm just helps our win condition a little bit more. Pale Cascade is the nut draw. Taric wants to just be cloning the resolve here. Could actually go for the draw. The double draw here looks a little bit better. So we want to enable the Pale Cascade. It shouldn't really matter what we use this on. We want to play around Vengeance. Ooh, that's interesting. Well, Taric's leveling up, right? So we beat Vengeance. Yeah, Taric's leveling up here. So we beat Vengeance already. And that means doesn't matter what we axe. Looks good. So we will start with an axe. That's because we want to clone Cascade instead of Sharpened Resolve. We want to use Sharpened Resolve reactively, just because the identity of drawing an extra card has more of a chance of actually helping me win the game than anything else. And because Taric's leveled up, we're not losing to Vengeance hands either, so we just have way too much damage, and he should just fold. Maybe he has some crazy surviving hands, and I needed to like maximize my damage a bit more. Maybe there's some weird hand that can actually do well enough against this. Whale plus X could be a problem. I didn't actually do the math, so it's possible we misplay that. So the double whale here keeps him at 2, so yeah, we're good. I mean, I do think we beat every hand there, but I didn't make like 100% certainty. I don't know. So yeah, I think this game is another good example of just like thinking about turns to kill and clock. He played that the way he needed to. He realized we were going to kill him on his next attack no matter what, so he had no choice but to he had no choice but to try to rush us down. And that's why like we had to save Guiding Touch for face, because the only way we lose that game is dying on that turn, and just we want to set him up for the kill on, God, I don't remember the turn number. Was it turn 8 that we killed him? Alright, seems good. But yeah, Taric's good in this deck. Is Sparklefly actually just bad in this deck? This deck build is getting very weird very fast. So there's one thing happening in this deck. There's one thing happening in this deck that defies normal deck building logic, right? Normal deck building logic. Which is that normally in a deck like this, you'd want your extra slots to help diversify your win condition and help out bad hands. But because we have Draven's Biggest Fan, it's hard to explain how big of a deal Draven's Biggest Fan is and how auto it is as a 3-of. Because we have Draven's Biggest Fan, we can build the deck in a way that's like, it's all in on having Draven. And something, for example, something like Sparklefly that mostly makes sense when we don't have Draven starts to kind of just not make sense at all, right? That's the weird thing here. Out of the Way has actually won us some games. So I'm thinking like, I mean, maybe the best play is to replace Sparklefly with just some utility spell. Something that extends our reach. Mentor. So Mentor is interesting. I kind of hate Mentor in this deck. It's not a buff target for Taric. It can't curve Draven into Taric. The gems don't do anything. I think Mentor is just garbage in this deck. Arbiter of the Peak? Nope. Shunpo? No. Definitely not. Death Lotus for aggro. So that's a decent suggestion. Death Lotus is something I'm fairly close to running. It actually helps a potential problem spot, which is against aggro. The problem with Death Lotus is that in this meta right now, aggro decks don't lose to Death Lotus. They're either Scouts. Scouts runs Resolve and potentially Chain Vest. And even if they're not running those, they don't even have a lot of 1 health units anymore. And decks like Go Hard, mostly like those are the aggro draws that kill us. Death Lotus doesn't really counter like just current forms of aggro right now. Is kind of the biggest problem. You guys have no idea. There's a card in the game that if I could run it in this deck, I would fucking just like, I would be so fucking happy. I would literally, I wish I could run this card. I wish I was in the regions. Can you guys guess the card I'm thinking of? If you guys watch me a lot, you guys might be able to guess the, really? Like, if I could just fucking run Chain Vest in this deck, you guys have no idea how fucking hard that would make me. Chain Vest would be so fucking good in this deck. It would be so fucking good. I'd love Chain Vest so much.